In this video, I'm going to show you how to check all the fluids on this Toyota Camry. Engine oil, coolant, transmission fluid, brake fluid, and of course at the end I'm going to show you how to top off your washer fluid. There is no hydraulic power steering in this, so there's no power steering fluid to be checked. Let's get started. Let's start with engine oil. Right next to your exhaust manifold, you'll see that yellow dipstick right there. That is for your engine oil. So you're going to want to reach for it and remove it. As you pull it out, you're going to want to wipe it so that it's nice and clean and gets a proper reading. Now it is important that the vehicle stays with the engine off for about 15-20 minutes at least in order for you to check the proper level here so that all the oil can drain back down into the oil pan. Also make sure you're on a flat level surface. If you're not, this can skew your reading. With this clean, dip it back down in all the way, pull it back out, and this will tell us a reading of the level of the oil that's in the engine. You'll see two dots on here, one at the top and one at the bottom. This is your low mark and this is your high mark. You want to be almost on the full mark. If you are due for an oil change, it is normal for it to be slightly towards the middle or towards the low mark. But if you are not due for an oil change and you are low on oil, it is important to top this off so that you don't cause any engine damage from running low on oil. It is difficult to tell the condition of the oil just from looking at it on the dipstick in most cases. So when it comes to condition of the oil, just go by your oil change interval and just make sure you change that oil frequently. This one actually looks very good. It is fresh oil actually because I recently did an oil change on this vehicle, but the level looks good, the quality looks good. So I'm going to put this back in. When you put this back in, make sure you go down all the way and it clicks down into place. If you need to add oil, at the top of your engine is your oil filler cap. Unscrew it, and you can see right on it, it says that this engine takes 0W20 oil. The entire quantity is about 4.5 quarts, so if you just need to add some to top it off, start with about half a quart and then go from there. You don't want to overfill the engine. Next, moving on to engine coolant. It is important that you check this so that your engine doesn't overheat, and if it is significantly low, there is a leak somewhere, so you're going to have to address that. Now, to check it, I'm first going to look at the overflow tank right here. This should be about half full with manufacturer specified coolant. This one looks very good for me. It is plenty full. And with a cold engine, you do not want to open this when the engine is warm or especially hot because the coolant is under pressure. You're going to want to turn the radiator cap counterclockwise and inspect the level of coolant in the radiator. This is your radiator fill cap, and I can see coolant right here, so I know I'm good. Now, if you didn't have any coolant in the overflow, you also most likely will be low in the radiator. So go ahead and top this off and then bleed the system. And of course, find out where the coolant is going. It is a closed and sealed system for the most part, so it is not supposed to be that low. If you are full on coolant here, but you are not full on coolant in the overflow, maybe the overflow has gone bad, and then you're going to want to inspect that and potentially replace it. But just fill up the overflow about halfway and you should be good to go. To check the transmission fluid, you want access to the underneath of the vehicle, especially to that transmission pan right there. Don't confuse it for the engine oil pan on the passenger side. And you're going to want that transmission warm at operating temperature, preferably having driven it so it could have gone through all the gears, and then leave the engine running, be on a perfectly flat level surface. And now I'm going to show you how to check that transmission fluid. Now with the engine running, be very careful of the hot exhaust and the hot engine. Take a 6mm Allen socket, stick it right in this drain plug, break it free. It can be fairly tight sometimes, so keep that in mind. And when you remove it, you may notice that no fluid comes out, or at least very little. That is because, let's see, okay, just a little bit of fluid. I'm actually draining it in a clean receptacle so that I can check the condition of it. But basically what's happening now is there's a straw in there that sticks up, and that will dictate the level of the fluid. So it will stop once it reaches the proper level. So you can see right about there is where it kind of wants to get down to a trickle. Now the condition of the fluid is fairly dark. This is supposed to be bright red automatic transmission fluid. So this, in my opinion, would be due for a change. This car has 150,000 miles on it. It has most likely never been changed, or a very long time ago. You can see it stopped. If you wanted to continue draining it at this point to change the fluid, you'd want to turn the engine off completely, then come back here, stick your socket in, and it should fit right in that straw, just like so. And then you would go ahead and unthread it, which I'm not going to do now because my engine is running and I don't want to burn out the transmission pump by running it low on fluid. If you're done, go ahead and cap this off. Get your socket in here and tighten this up. Just give it a quick snug, not too much. Wipe off any drippage, and I will now show you where to fill the transmission in case you need to add fluid for whatever reason. To add fluid, go through the driver's side wheel well. I turn the wheel all the way to the left to get full access to that shield. Remove these two 10mm bolts. And this gives you access to the 24mm fill plug that's right on that transmission. With this shield out of the way, grab your 24mm socket, break this free. Once you break it free, you can remove it, and the only way to get fluid in here is with a bendy funnel or a transfer pump, which is what I recommend. Now to add fluid, I highly recommend measuring how much you drained, add the same amount, then check again, and then add more or drain accordingly to your level. So now there's a gasket on here, so when you tighten this up, just squeeze it down a little bit. You don't need to crush it down a lot. Grab your socket, just give it a quick snug, and then put your shield back. On the driver's side of your engine compartment towards the firewall, you'll see this reservoir here. Wipe it off. This is for your brake fluid. Remove the cap, and of course to check the level of the fluid, you don't actually have to remove the cap, but it sometimes is easier to look straight down in here. You'll see this line here. This is your max line. It should be full unless your brakes are severely worn out, and then the fluid will go down, or maybe you have a brake fluid leak. That would also be dangerous. To check the quality of the fluid, they make brake fluid testers. This is what they look like, and all it does is you dip these two prongs in the brake fluid, press the button, and it lights up based on the condition of the fluid. All it does is it measures the water quantity in the brake fluid. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it does absorb water, and the more water you have in the brake fluid, the less it's going to be able to withstand higher temperatures because it's just going to boil. So if your water quantity is too high, you're going to want to flush that brake fluid. Mine is okay, it's less than 1%. So I'm going to cap this back off, and I know mine's full, so I'm done here. If mine was in bad condition or low, I would either top it off or flush it. Right behind your passenger side headlight, you have the windshield washer tank here. Pop the cap off and fill it with your favorite washer fluid.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.